Welcome to another deep dive, everybody. Today we're going to be looking at Goldiam International Ltd,
Yeah.
a company focused on diamond-studded gold jewelry, and
Yeah.
they're making some interesting moves.
Yeah, definitely some fascinating details in their 2023-24 annual report that we're going to dig into.
Yeah, we've got that report right here, and we're going to try to figure out what's going on with these guys.
Especially with their strategy, moving into retail in India, that's a big move.
Yeah, and with this move into retail, are they focusing on lab-grown diamonds or?
That seems to be a big part of their strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah, really kind of capitalizing on that growing demand.
Yeah. Are lab-grown diamonds like a real threat to mined diamonds, or?
That's a good question, and it's something that Goldiam is really banking on.
Okay.
Lab-grown diamonds, they are chemically and physically the same as mined diamonds.
Really?
Yeah, but they're created in a lab using advanced technology, so, that means that they can often be offered at a lower price, which can appeal to a wider range of customers.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense, especially younger people maybe who are
Exactly.
more price sensitive.
And, there's also that ethical and environmental aspect that consumers are more and more concerned about.
Yeah, absolutely. Like these luxury goods, especially, you kind of want to know where they came from.
Exactly. And lab-grown diamonds really shine in that area. There's no mining practices to worry about, like, land degradation or human rights issues.
Right.
Plus, the carbon footprint is way lower.
Makes sense.
So Goldiam is really attracting those consumers who want sustainability and ethical sourcing.
Okay, so they're kind of hitting both sides of the coin there, like the values
Yeah.
and the value.
Precisely aligning with those changing consumer preferences and addressing some of the challenges that the diamond industry is facing.
Okay, so before we get too deep into like their retail venture, let's step back and talk about Goldiam International, as a company.
Sure.
What's their story?
Well, they're headquartered in Mumbai,
Okay.
in India. And they've been around for a while selling diamond-studded gold jewelry. And they've actually got a pretty strong track record, especially when it comes to their financials.
Yeah, I was looking at the report. Their 2023-24 performance was pretty impressive.
Yeah, they had really significant increases in both consolidated and standalone turnover.
Now, what is the difference between consolidated and standalone?
Yeah, so consolidated means that they're including all of their subsidiaries in those figures. So it reflects the performance of the entire Goldiam group.
Gotcha.
Whereas standalone is just focusing on the parent company itself.
Okay.
So when we see a 13.07% increase in consolidated turnover, reaching 60,286.98 lakhs.
Wow.
That's a sign the whole family is doing well.
Yeah, that's huge.
And then the 23.18 jump in standalone turnover to 37,377.81 lakhs shows that the parent company is holding its own as well.
Okay, so they're doing well on both fronts.
Yeah, definitely leveraging their diverse operations to drive growth. And, their primary focus has traditionally been on exports. That's where they've generated most of their revenue.
But now with this push into India, it sounds like they're trying to diversify a little.
Exactly. Yeah. Tapping into that domestic market, which is growing like crazy.
Yeah.
And the report actually gives us some really interesting insights into the Indian gems and jewelry industry overall.
Ooh, yeah. I'm curious about that. I've always been fascinated by the jewelry industry, especially in India, where it's, so historically and culturally significant.
It is, yeah. It's a huge contributor to the Indian economy, and they're predicting even more growth in the coming years because the middle class is expanding and people have more disposable income.
So as people have more money to spend, they're spending it on jewelry.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
They even mention a projected GDP growth rate of 6.6% for fiscal year 2025 in India.
Wow, it's
a lot.
Yeah.
And that kind of economic expansion just creates a really good environment for the jewelry sector.
So it sounds like Goldiam is in a good position to really ride this wave of growth?
Absolutely.
No, they're not the only player in the game, are they?
No. Definitely not. Competition is something we'll have to look at later.
Yeah, what's that landscape look like?
Oh, yeah, we'll get there. But I think before we do that, we should take a look at the overall health of the industry.
Okay, so even if India is doing well, there could be things happening globally that affect the entire sector.
Things like geopolitical tensions and sanctions, especially those targeting Russia, which is a major source of diamonds, that can create uncertainty in the supply chain and potentially affect prices.
So even if demand in India is strong, there could be these external factors that create challenges.
Yeah. Navigating those global dynamics is going to be key for them. But let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Okay.
I think it's time to take a look at those financials in more detail.
Okay. So We talked about their revenue growth, but what about profitability?
Yeah, are they converting those sales into actual profit?
Yeah.
And to really assess that, we got to look at things like EBITDA margins, Pat, and cost efficiency.
But you're going to have to break those down for me.
Sure.
I'm not a financial expert.
So EBITDA stands for earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization.
Okay.
It basically measures operating profitability. So it shows how much profit they're making from their core operations.
Okay.
Before you factor in things like debt and taxes.
Okay.
Then you've got PAT, which is profit after tax.
Okay.
So that's the net income after all the expenses and taxes are taken out.
So EBITDA is like operational efficiency and PAT is like...
Yeah, like the bottom line.
Bottom line.
Exactly.
Okay.
And when we look at Goldiam's numbers, we see a pretty positive story.
Okay.
Consolidated profit before tax increased by 3.94%, reaching 12,209.48 lakhs.
Okay.
Consolidated profit after tax reached 9,090.74 lakhs.
So they're growing revenue and managing costs well.
Yeah, looks like it.
Okay.
And their standalone profit after tax also increased by 4.28%, reaching 5,930.88 lakhs.
Wow. So that's in line with the standalone turnover growth.
Yeah, exactly. It shows their core operations are solid.
Oh.
They're doing well.
So we've got these positive profit figures, but you mentioned cost efficiency.
Yeah.
What are we seeing in the report there?
Well, the report doesn't give us a ton of detail on costs or trends in specific expenses.
So that's something we're going to have to look into more.
Yeah, definitely. But even without all the nitty-gritty details, the fact that their profit is growing along with their revenue is a positive sign.
Yeah, they're probably doing something right.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to market presence.
Okay.
You know, are they a big player in the diamond-studded gold jewelry market?
Well, this is where things get a little tricky. The report doesn't really give us specifics about market share or their competitive position.
Okay, so we don't know how they stack up.
Not really.
Against the competition?
Yeah, it's a bit of a blind spot.
What about their order book? Can we see, you know, the demand for their products?
Unfortunately, no. The report doesn't say anything about their order book either.
Okay, so those are two pretty big pieces of information that are missing.
Definitely.
All right, well, we can still learn from what we do have. So let's talk about financial health.
Sure.
What do we know about their debt levels, cash flow, working capital?
All right, so for this, we kind of have to read between the lines a bit.
Okay.
The report talks about their recent buyback of 2,179,493 equity shares at 150 euro per share, totaling 369.24 lakhs.
Yeah, I remember reading about that. Wasn't that a pretty big move for them?
It was, and it usually means the company has a lot of cash on hand.
Okay.
And they feel confident about returning value to their shareholders.
So they're in a strong financial position.
Seems like it, at least in terms of liquidity.
Okay.
They also mention having a diverse portfolio of investments, you know, things like mutual funds and corporate bonds. So they're actively managing their assets.
And they're using forward contracts to manage foreign exchange risk.
Yeah, that's a good sign. It means they're thinking ahead and trying to reduce the impact of currency fluctuations.
Okay, so even though we don't have specifics on their debt or cash flow, these little things suggest that they're being financially prudent.
I think that's a fair assessment, but remember, this is just a glimpse to their financial health.
Yeah, we'd need to see more to get the full picture.
Exactly, but so far so good.
So we've talked about Goldiam, you know, the company itself. Their venture into retail in India with these lab-grown diamonds.
Yeah.
And we've even started to unpack their financials.
We have.
Where should we go next in our deep dive?
Okay, well, now that we have a good foundation, I think it's time to really dig into the factors that are driving Goldiam's growth and the potential risks they're facing.
All right, so the growth drivers and the potential roadblocks.
Exactly. Let's do it.
All right, so we've talked about their financials, their move into retail. What's really driving their growth?
Yeah, we touched on how lab-grown diamonds could give them an advantage. Right.
But are there other factors?
Well, the overall growth of the gems and jewelry sector in India is playing a big role.
Okay.
Remember that 6.60% GDP growth projection for 2025?
Yeah.
That means a bigger middle class with more money to spend, which is great for Goldiam.
So they're benefiting from that overall economic prosperity.
Exactly. And on top of that, the Indian government is really promoting the industry with export promotion initiatives and technology upgrades.
It's like they have a tailwind pushing them forward.
You got it.
Okay.
But it's not all smooth sailing. There are some risks to consider.
Right, like those geopolitical tensions?
Exactly, especially with the sanctions on Russia.
Yeah, Russia's a major diamond source.
It is. So any disruption there could affect the whole industry.
Okay.
Supply chain problems, price fluctuations. It's something Goldiam needs to keep an eye on.
So even though demand in India is strong, these global factors could still pose a challenge.
Absolutely. They
Okay.
got to be ready to adapt.
What other risks are there?
Well, inflation is a concern. Okay.
If prices keep rising, people might cut back on luxury spending.
That makes sense if you're worried about affording groceries.
Right.
You're probably not buying diamond earrings.
Exactly. And then there's the online competition.
Yeah. E-commerce is a big deal these days.
It is. The report even mentions how thriving e-commerce activities are creating new opportunities for untapped markets.
So Goldiam is to adapt to that digital world.
They do. They need a strong online presence to compete.
Okay, earlier we talked about that share buyback.
Mm-hmm.
You said it could indicate financial strength.
Right.
But is there another way to look at it?
Well, some investors might wonder if it means the company doesn't have better ways to use their money.
Okay, so instead of investing in growth, they're giving it back to shareholders.
That's one interpretation.
Interesting.
It's hard to know their reasoning for sure, but it's a valid point.
Yeah, it's good to consider different perspectives.
Always.
Okay, so we've talked about the financials, but what about corporate governance?
Good question.
Are they transparent and accountable? Well, the report actually goes into detail about their governance structure.
Right.
They have a diverse board with executive and non-executive directors.
It's good. Different perspectives can lead to better decisions.
Exactly, and half the board are independent directors.
Okay.
Which is a good sign.
Yeah, that helps ensure objectivity.
Exactly.
So what about the actual functioning of the board?
They had 4 board meetings during the 2023-24 fiscal year.
Okay.
And they even had a separate meeting just for independent directors to review performance and make sure communication is flowing smoothly.
So they're serious about transparency.
It seems that way. They also have formal policies for selecting, appointing, and paying directors.
Okay, so they've got a structured approach.
Yeah.
What about their commitment to sustainability? Is it just talk, or are they walking the walk?
Well, the move into lab-grown diamonds is a big step.
Right.
But they're doing more than that.
Yeah.
They have a whole section in the report about their corporate social responsibility activities.
So what are they doing? Are they supporting any initiatives?
Yeah, they've got programs in healthcare education, community development.
Wow.
They're even supporting cancer research and providing meals to those in need.
That's great to see.
It is, and they're also focused on sustainability within their operations.
Okay.
Energy conservation, waste management, employee well-being.
So it's not just a marketing ploy?
No, it seems genuine.
Okay.
They've also implemented a whistleblower policy and a prevention of sexual harassment policy.
That's important. Shows they're creating a safe and ethical work environment.
Absolutely. A sign of good corporate citizenship.
Okay, so we've covered the growth drivers, the risks, the governance, the sustainability initiatives.
We have.
What's next?
Well, we've got a lot of information now.
Yeah, we do.
But what does it all mean for Goldiam's future?
Okay.
It's time to connect the dots and see what the bigger picture looks like. What are the potential outcomes for this company?
All right, let's explore that. Wow, we've really gone deep on Goldiam International, haven't we?
We have their financials, their strategies, their governance, their sustainability. It's a lot.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's clear that they're not standing still. They're really trying to make things happen.
Yeah, they're in a fast-moving industry with a ton of potential, but also a lot of challenges.
Good. So high risk, high reward.
Exactly.
And what really stands out to me is their focus on innovation. Like with those lab-grown diamonds.
Right.
That feels like a game changer, not just for them, but for the whole industry.
It could be, but it's still early. Consumer perception of lab-grown diamonds is still evolving.
Yeah.
Goldiam has to market them really carefully.
Yeah.
They need to make them feel luxurious and desirable, not just a cheaper alternative.
Right, because at the end of the day, people buy jewelry for emotional reasons.
Exactly.
It's about beauty and status and expressing yourself. So Goldiam needs to tap into that.
Yeah.
While also highlighting those unique benefits of lab-grown diamonds.
They need to tell a good story, one that resonates with people. If they can do that, they could really shake things up and create a new standard for luxury that's also sustainable.
And it could inspire other companies to do the same.
Absolutely.
Embrace those more sustainable practices.
Right.
Maybe even switch to lab-grown diamonds.
Yeah, Goldiam could be leading the way.
Imagine a future where those ethical and environmental concerns around diamond mining are just gone.
Yeah.
And it all started with Goldiam.
It's a possibility.
Pretty exciting thought. But we got to remember those challenges too.
Right.
The geopolitical risks, inflation, online competition.
Yeah, they've got to be smart and adaptable, always watching the market and adjusting as they go.
And they can't just rest on their laurels. They have to keep innovating.
Absolutely, both with their designs and how they market themselves.
So it sounds like they have their work cut out for them.
They do.
But from what we've seen in their report, they seem ready for it.
Yeah, they have the vision, the resources, and the drive to make it happen.
And they're not afraid to take risks to push the boundaries.
That's what makes them so interesting.
So to everyone listening out there, keep an eye on Goldiam International. They're at a crossroads. And the decisions they make now will shape their future.
And it's not just about their bottom line. It's about the impact they could have on the whole industry and the world.
Right. Could they be a symbol of sustainable luxury? Could they change how people think about diamonds?
It's a question worth pondering.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive into Goldiam International.
It has.
Hopefully you learned something new and you're as intrigued by their story as we are.
I am.
Thanks for joining us. And until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.